Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for November 14th, 2024. Well, I was up very late last night reviewing the various Western commentary on last week's election, the pro-Trump, anti-Trump, and those who claim to be objective. And here's my current conclusion. None of them understand the dynamics defining the strategic and economic policy of the transatlantic world. And so I'm going to begin by quoting from two people who actually do understand those dynamics. In a November 8th interview, retired Colonel Douglas Macgregor spoke of the kind of rethinking that's going to be necessary in the aftermath of the US election. And he said, people don't think these things through. We've got to give up the whole idea of sanctioning, bullying, and threatening. We've got to get out a clean sheet of paper and start from scratch. And he went on to say that the thing that might enable that to occur is the financial crisis that's looming just over the horizon. Remember, Macgregor was an advisor to the Secretary of Defense at the end of Trump's first term of office. Now, another person who gets this dynamic of the strategic situation in the world is Helga Zepp-LaRouche, the founder of the Schiller Institute. And she said, the challenge of our time is for the US and Europe to cooperate with the BRICS countries in the development of the global South. And she went on to say that the world stage has changed dramatically since Trump left the White House 4 years ago. And now the existence of a global majority in the form of the BRICS is a new strategic reality, which I think no president of the United States nor head of government of any country can ignore. And what she was talking about is if you take Macgregor's concept of a blank sheet of paper and starting from scratch, the way you break the pattern of wars and chaos and regime change, coups, and so on, is that you cooperate for the development of nations that have not been allowed to develop because of the imperial system that's been imposed upon them. And that's how you avoid wars. Development, as Pope Paul VI said, is the new name for peace. Now, what really struck me in looking at these commentary, these reporters, these pundits and others, is the apocalyptic stories which are appearing in the anti-Trump media attacking his appointees. Now, I have to say there are some of these appointees that I'm concerned about. For example, Representative Stefanik, who's the Sheldon and Miriam Adelson Award winner because she's a hardcore radical Zionist. And that there is concern that some of these appointees, especially those with connections to Israel, will give a free hand to Netanyahu and his extremist allies to continue their genocidal attacks on the Palestinian people in a genuine ethnic cleansing. But to hear some of the opponents of Trump attack these people is the height of hypocrisy. Where are the voices from these people when Biden's team has been openly complicit in genocide? This has been exposed previously. There's hard evidence that shows that Blinken lied to the Congress when he said, quote, our assessment is that Israel is not blocking humanitarian aid. He said that when he was sitting on 3 reports from his own State Department that showed that with page after page of examples, that Israel was blocking aid. And in blocking aid to starving people, the Israelis were in violation of humanitarian law. And in not calling them on that, Blinken was in violation of US law. That is, Blinken, by lying, did so that the US law wouldn't be applied, which would have cut off supply of weapons and aid to Israel. Now, to cover up the lying, Blinken and Austin issued a statement, a letter, a little more than 30 days ago, giving Israel 30 days to carry out specific measures that they identified that had to be taken to bring Israel back into compliance with U.S. law. Now, the first question you should have is, why would you give them 30 days? People were already starving. People are dying. But there were 12 measures that had to be improved to stop what Blinken and Austin in their memo called the deteriorating humanitarian situation in Gaza. So they acknowledged it was a deteriorating situation. Now, 30 days later, what's happened? Well, 8 humanitarian aid agencies have released a scorecard. And what they say is that Israel not only has failed to meet U.S. criteria, but has taken actions dramatically worsening the situation on the ground, pointing to what's going on in Gaza and northern Gaza right now with Israeli military operations underway. There have been 100,000 people displaced from northern Gaza to Gaza City. Up to 95,000 people remain in northern Gaza without food or medical supplies. Now, this means that Israel is in violation of U.S. law, Section 620I of the Foreign Assistance Act. And under that law, aid should be cut off from them. Well, where are the voices of the self-proclaimed humanitarians who are saying nothing of these Israeli violations? Where are the defenders of liberal democracy when the bastion of liberal democracy, the enforcer of the rules-based order, is violating international humanitarian laws and its own statutory laws? Where is Samantha Power, the promoter of the responsibility to protect, which for her means an excuse for launching regime change coups? What about Susan Rice, who's held multiple positions under Clinton, Obama, and Biden, including a member of the Defense Policy Board Advisory Committee, who was an advisor to Biden and then an advisor to the Harris campaign? Where is she on this? And what about Blinken himself, the salesman of the rules-based order, who neglects to tell you that these are not international law or rules of international organizations, but the choice of Blinken? Either you abide by his laws or you violate the rules-based order. Now, this is Albright's kindergarten, Madeleine Albright, who herself was a protege of Zbigniew Brzezinski. And what Albright made clear is that she cared nothing for human rights and values, that she's the one who told CBS 60 Minutes that in defending the sanctions that killed 500,000 Iraqi children, she said it was worth the price. Now, that's the Albright kindergarten. That's the attitude of the Blinkens and the Powers and the Rices and others. And so, while we don't know yet what Trump will do, if he's going to be able to fulfill his pledge to stop the existing wars and not start any other wars, what we do know is that the Biden team is continuing to be complicit in an open genocide going on in Gaza and now in southern Lebanon. So what's the deeper issue here? What is it that McGregor is talking about, that Helga Zepp-LaRouche was talking about? Well, it's that we're dealing with an empire, that the transatlantic region is run as an empire for corporate cartels, for the interests of the billionaire class, and not in the interests of peace and security of sovereign nations. Let me just read from someone else who gets it, Patrick Lawrence, who has an article in Consortium News on November 13th. And here's what he says. He writes about what's going on throughout the transatlantic with Starmer, with Macron, with the collapse of the Schultz government in Germany. And he says the approval ratings in all these cases could scarcely be lower. But this is the liberal order of these days. Then he goes on to say this in reference to the United States. He says that the imperium that now blights the world is nothing if not a bipartisan affair. Empire was not an issue on November 5th. There was no voting against it in all its awful manifestations: genocide, interventions of all kinds, proxy wars, sabotage operations, the usual menu of coups, starvation sanctions, civil society subterfuge, infinite varieties of coercion. Altogether, the disorder wreaked in the name of the rules-based international order. And he said there was not even any talking about what America has made of itself and what it does beyond its shores. So to repeat his summary, the imperium that now blights the world is nothing if not a bipartisan affair. Well, in the United States, it's bipartisan. In Europe, it's across many parties. And that's what the problem is, that the issue is not who's being appointed. The issue is the direction of policy. There's an opportunity now, as Mrs. LaRouche pointed out, for the West to go with a clean sheet of paper, as McGregor said, and work together with sovereign nations to help them develop. That's the new strategic and development architecture that's needed. And that's what will be the subject of an upcoming conference, December 7th and 8th of the Schiller Institute. That was the subject of Helga Zepp-LaRouche's webcast yesterday, which is linked below. And that's what will be the topic on the Zoom call of the International Peace Coalition on Friday. We're going to fight to bring the real issues out. Don't listen to the wailing and gnashing of teeth of the liberal media or from some of the neocon conservatives who don't think that Trump is going to do enough to carry out their wars. What's necessary is a citizens' movement, and that's what we have to do. So join with us, and what I'd like to do is ask you to send me your thoughts on this. You can write to me at harleysch@gmail.com, and we can include some of your comments in tomorrow's update.